our job as door-to-door sales professionals is to create the decision,
Dude.
otherwise known as closing. People buy emotionally and they back the decision up with logic. Well, hey, if I can create the emotion, then I can create the decision. If I can create the decision, then I can close. The process is not to the customer, it's for the customer. I'm the assistant buyer. I take their hand and lead them through the process.
Yeah, man, that's fire.
Yeah.
So, we were discussing when you were out there, I was like, I think I didn't ask the question right to Taylor. And I think the question was, there's two aspects of door to door. And I don't think a lot of trainers or a lot of people that are hopping onto the industry understand that there's two sides. There's knowing the content, right? There's knowing all the one-liners and knowing everything about the product. And then there's the mental side.
Mm-hmm.
What do you teach first?
Great question. First off, there's one objection I need to overcome, and that's trust. I could have every one-liner in the book. If they don't trust me, they're not going to do it. But this game is mental, right? I don't look at it like I'm knocking doors. I go trick or treat. I'm trick or treating out there. I trick or treat for free money. I go out there and I exercise and I make friends.
When you say trick or treat,
yeah,
you ask. Are you asking? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, that's what I look at. Like when I was a little kid, right? You had a 2-hour window to go trick or treating, and we would run door to door and try to collect as much candy as we could, right? So you look at it like when I'm out there in the field, right? I have a sense of urgency. I'm in a game. I'm hunting, right? I need to take them as far through the process as possible, and that's the best part about what we do is if you have attitude, belief, and conviction, and your mentality is where it needs to be, in the sense of like, dude, when I go out there, I'm fully involved in the game. It's like playing a sport. You're not thinking about your science project. You're not thinking about arguing with your girl. You're thinking about making the next play. And the same thing, like I self-talk myself right into the deal. I know deep down that there's no way I can hurt their situation. And that belief, believe it or not, 51% of the entire sales process is enthusiasm. It's the belief I have within the deal. The definition of enthusiasm is the spirit that I have within me. So if I look somebody square in the eye and they're like, dude, this kid looks the part, sounds the part, will that make sense? Will that make sense? The families that we serve are going to look for every excuse to tell me no, and I need to find the excuse for them to say yes. Right? Because I'm going to find that hot button. It's the same way with a boxer. A boxer rarely gets a one-punch knockout. He has a combination that leads up to that knockout, and that's what we do in sales. We find the excuse for them to say yes, and they're going to look for every excuse to say no. One or two things is going to happen. My belief is stronger in the deal, and I'm going to transition into their home, or their belief is stronger than mine, and they're going to transition me back into the street. Right? Because I'm a consumer myself. People don't want to deal with the time and hassle of dealing with somebody when they go knock on your door. But guess what? This is my profession. This is my craft. This is my art. And I know the fact that my job starts when they say no. So I'm a lot more persistent and I engage people a lot faster than the normal door-to-door sales professional.
So I'm going to stop you right there because you said you dropped some bombs right there, right? The trust, obviously, we have to create it at the doors. And then you talked about urgency and the belief, right? And you also, touched on conviction and all that stuff that, gradually it's rare when you see people that are born with all those attributes. But what do you tell the guys that are in the industry that are coming in that have no fucking idea that there's this much money in the industry and that it takes more than just going out there a couple hours during the day to gain this belief and urgency to want more out of life? What drives you, I guess? What drives you? And then you could touch up on the other ones. I think that was a lot of shit that I told you about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess the first thing, what drives me is it's never been about like why I'm doing this. It's about who I'm doing it for, right? And, I'm 32 years old. I started doing this when I was 18 years old. And I remember being 14, 15, 16 years old, worrying about money and seeing my dad get down to his last $20 and he would take that money and spend it on me and my little sister. Then I was a golf caddy, 15, 16, 17 years old. My first day in door-to-door sales, it would have taken me 15 hours of golf caddying for what took me 1 hour selling TV, phone, and internet. So I guess my why and my who has always been, for my family and making my dad proud. But at the same time, it's always been a competition for me. Like I'm competing every single time that I go out there. And, I'm trying to dominate the competition. Like one thing that Elon Musk taught me when I worked at Solar City was I believe in winning. losing is not an option. And once you accept losing, you become a loser. And, for me, I've always looked at, I love to win, but I just hate to lose. Like, it stings. Like, just being able to be in the position to compete, because when we grow up out of high school and college, we get away from our cliques, we're away from our sports teams, and this is our sport. This is my sport. This is my craft.
How do you get out of that belief where you might not just be, you're not too sure that you can, win as much as you're winning? I think, like, where's my question? I'm losing my question. What is, exactly. Where is that line and that breakthrough for somebody that's new? Like, how do you, because I have that belief too. There's no way. People ask me, how the fuck do you have all these things in such a short period of time? Bro, I cannot lose. And I built this global belief that everybody that's with me is better with me than without me, which means that I'm going to provide as much as I can to them so that they can fucking grow and win. Right. And then if I can help enough people do that, then I'm going to get what I want out of life. Right. So I created these beliefs and global beliefs, and I try not to break them. So, but there's always a breakthrough, bro. Because I remember I used to always ask myself, like, I would wake up and I was like, bro, is this it? Is this it for the rest of my life? You know what I mean? Like, where was that breakthrough?
So this is the way that I look at it. The speed of the leader is the speed of the team. The people are going to do 50% of what the leader does correct, and they're going to do 1,000% of what the leader does incorrect, right? Yeah. So you need to have a rabbit within your organization, and I was always the rabbit within my organization. Now, if I was brand new, right, the biggest thing is people start to doubt themselves, right? People start to focus on the things that they do wrong and what they're doing. Like any practicing professional, a practicing professional spends so much money on a reception area because it builds belief, right? Yeah. If you walked into a dentist's office because your tooth was hurting and you walked in and the reception area was trash, does that mean the dentist is trash? Does it mean it technically? Like if you walked in, could it be technically, no. Technically it could be the best doctor in the world. Yeah. But could you also walk into a reception area that was immaculate and it could be the dentist's first day? But when you walk in there, you have belief. And that's what happens is as door-to-door sales professionals, timing is the hardest part of our job. We don't know if we're going to walk left on a road, if we're going to walk right, if people are going to be nice, if people are mean, if somebody talked to Solar yesterday or the day before. But what happens is the door-to-door sales professionals at the beginning, they focus on the things they do wrong and they start to beat themselves up. That's like kicking over the furniture in your reception area. That's what it is. So what I tell people that are brand new is to focus on the things that they do right. There's something called the success triangle. It's your technique, your attitude, and your behavior. If your tactics are sound, they can't fight you. If the attitude and what's programmed up here in my mind is thinking negative, my thoughts and beliefs and my words will become an emotion which will make me feel a certain way. Then I'm going to judge myself and I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to repeat that because that's very important. Yeah. The things that I think about will become words, and then it will become an emotion, and then the emotion will become a feeling, and that feeling will become a judgment, and that judgment will become a decision, and then I'm going to start judging myself and make a decision on how good or how bad I am.
So what do you tell somebody that is listening to you right now? It's like, this is bullshit. This guy's talking out of his ass. Because a lot of the time when I talk, some of the guys look at me and they're like, fuck, here we go again, the mental mindset again. What do you say to somebody like that that's listening to like, oh, there's this guy going off on, attitude and activity? What do you say?
All I can say is anybody can last a year, 2 years, 3 years, but I've been doing this for 15 years, and time will either expose you or promote you. And people think I'm crazy when I go to the field. I talk to myself in the third person. Let's go, Taylor. Let's go. This is a done deal, bro. Come on. You're too good. You're too good. Like after I get a set or after I get a deal, I'm like, Taylor, you're too good. Right? And people might think, oh, dude, he's being cocky or this or that. I'm humble at home, but I'm not humble in the field. No. That's like Muhammad Ali says. He's not humble when he walks into that ring. He's a prize fighter. And that's the way that I envision myself. The way that you envision yourself is the roadmap that you're going to create for yourself. You see, you can only see so far with a certain vision, but as I start to believe and start telling myself what's going to happen, I don't know if it's because I'm Irish and I get lucky all the time, right? But
I love that joke, by the way.
At the end of the day, right? I just constantly produce. It's all these away games. But guess what? Like one of my filmers, we were out here and he's like, do you ever get nervous when you get on these blitzes? And I was like, no, this is what I do. Right? This is what I know. This is what I've dedicated a good portion of my life to. And, you know, I know that I tie my success to the input and the effort. I don't tie my success to the deals that I make, but I happen to always make the deals, because what happens is this, right? You might go out there and you're fired up after a meeting and you're all motivated, and then 2-3 hours you start telling yourself this is bad turf, or Karen was upset at me, or Darren called me a mother effer, you know, and then the next thing you know is you start beating yourself up, and then you have a perfectly good look, and guess what? You weren't as contagious as you were at the beginning of the day. So I'm knocking a turf, a gated community. I've got 2 guys shadowing me. I'm like, bro, I'm going to crush it today. First door is always a deal. Perfect roof for solar, they're going to do it. Guaranteed. I guarantee, dude, there's no way they're going to tell me no. And I go through a perfect presentation, and the guy goes, this is a gated community, get out of here. Slams his door. I walk off that door. Bro, I crushed that door, dude. If I keep that diction and that presentation up the entire day, we're going to absolutely smash it today. Like, I'm crushing it today. I get to the next door. Perfect presentation. My pace, my volume, my diction, how I pronunciated my words, you know, how I was transitioning from my points. And 3 or 4 or 5, 6 doors in a row, I get the door slammed in my face. These people, this is a gated community. And I'm get off that 7th door, an hour and a half into it, and I'm like, bro, I am crushing it right now, bro. I am so on point. These people just weren't a good fit. It was bad timing. And then I get like 2 hours into it, and I get 3 deals in a row. Well, why did I get 3 deals in a row? Is because I didn't beat myself up. I knew what was going to happen. It's just the timing aspect of it.
You kept your attitude. You're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's I just keep my head down. The main thing is to keep the main thing. And I want to focus on input and things that are in my control, because when you put your energy outside of where you've influence, guess what you're going to do? You're going to wear yourself out. When you put your energy outside of where you have influence, you wear yourself out. Some do, some don't. So what?
So, you know, I talk to our guys about 2 things. There's 2 things you can always control: your attitude and your activity.
Yes.
Right? And then there's a section to that I always apply, right? Because the guys, I do the same. I just heard the guys say the same thing about you. Like, this guy doesn't fucking eat. And it says when you're in the zone, like when I go knocking, I don't think about what happened. I think about what happened at the last door, but I think about, shit, that was pretty close. Fuck. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, I could have been a little bit quicker. And then I go to the next one. I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply this to this. I'm like, fuck, I only left after like 3 notes. The fuck was that? That was dumb. All right, I'm not going to leave the door until and then it's like the 20th door, and all of a sudden, bam, bam, all those little wins that I counted. I didn't count the slam doors. I counted the little wins.
Yes.
They stack up, and all of a sudden, same day, boom, close. Next day, boom. And all of a sudden, you're in 2 hours, and you're like, fuck, I said 3, close 1. Shit.
Because you focused on what you did right. You stop focusing on the things you do wrong, right?
That's it.
So one of the major 2 reasons why, you know, I found myself at the top of my field was because of absolute certainty, right? I knew exactly what I was doing. Absolute certainty on what I needed to accomplish, right? I walked into a room of 500 door-to-door sales professionals, and I knew that I was going to be the #1 salesperson within that office before I even sold the product, because I had absolute certainty and I had a stronger who than those guys. But also what allowed me to have absolute certainty and what allowed me to produce and execute, because there's 5 bones within an organization. There's the jawbone that will talk about it. There's the wishbone that wants it. There's the knuckle bone that shows up late. There's the tailbone that's in last place. And then there's the backbone that makes it happen. He takes the whole team on his back. He says, I'm going to put my last name on my back. I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm going to go make some plays. Okay. So for me, it was about having absolute certainty. But the word that always has allowed me to get to the next level is the word myopic. Myopic vision. MYOPIC. Myopic is like this. I've got a tunnel vision. I can't see left. I can't see right. I've got no distractions, right? Yeah. Things that aren't going to help me. When I met Tom Hopkins, he told me we must do the most productive task at every given moment. And that's constantly going through my head. Is this the most productive task that I can be doing? I don't knock to knock. I knock to sell. I'm a hunter out there, right? I didn't come all the way to Santa Maria, California just to hang out. You know, we're here to actually produce and execute. And, you know, I look at this like an away game. You know, they're going up against the #1 door-to-door salesman in the United States, and that's the way I envision myself. Yeah.
So you talk about absolute certainty. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when new people are coming in, they're like, well, fuck, how do I get to that level where I have absolute certainty? Like, what should somebody do, right, to gain absolute certainty? Or to gain motivation, or to stay motivated?
MPI. PDR. Memorize, practice, drill, rehearse. Practice does not make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. You go to the number one salesperson within your office. You go to the number one person. You record your presentation. You listen to your presentation. You listen to others. You find parts and pieces. It's like the reason there's so many peons or mediocrity in the sales game is because people aren't professionals. They don't understand a doctor has to go sacrifice multiple, like 10, 12, 13 years. Would you go get open heart surgery from a doctor that didn't have a degree that said, hey, you're my first open heart surgery? Of course you wouldn't, right?
One that didn't practice.
It's the same way you look at professional athletes, right? They spend decades in the gym sacrificing. The word sacrifice in the dictionary should be right next to success, because the most successful people are willing to do things unsuccessful people are not willing to do. And that's my goal as a sales trainer, because I went from an intrapreneur to an entrepreneur. I went from a Jerry Rice to a Jerry Jones, going from a really good player to an owner. And now the way I look at it is I'm being selfish if I don't give my gift back to as many people as possible, because door-to-door salesmen, we should be proud. We solicit solar door-to-door. We solicit alarms door-to-door. We solicit, TV, phone, internet door-to-door. And you should be proud of that.
You're doing a service.
You're doing a service, 100%.
So you talked about practice, right? Which to me, people don't understand. To me, the word practice holds more weight. And I think a lot of people kind of like quickly fucking talk through it all the fucking time. All the top salespeople. Oh, you got to practice. And then they talked about other shit. It's like, no, bro, listen. Practice does a lot of different things for you. You got to understand unconsciously, and what it does, there's different byproducts of perfecting something. Because when you came in here, I can tell when somebody's a fucking professional and somebody's not right away. I've been in the game for so long too, that it's like when I speak to people, I'm not listening to whatever the hell I'm saying. It's automatic. It's set, it's second nature. And I'm focusing on other factors that can help me determine where am I at in my presentation? All right. So talk about practice and how this helps you become, because you can practice and have your pitch down. You can memorize shit just like a fucking song, right? You can memorize it. But how do you become a professional? Like, what is practice? What byproducts does practice have?
So everything that I say during the sales presentation will help me or hurt me. There's no neutral within that process. Right? So I need to talk to people at the right frequency. It's not what I say. It's not how I say it. It's how I make them feel. If you're a 75-year-old woman that answers the door, oh, hi, miss, how are you? My name is Taylor McCarthy. Yeah, sorry I'm late. We did want to do about 2 more. And they're like, what the heck's going on, right? Yeah. And then if I am knocking on a door and nobody's answering, and then maybe I hit them with the triple ring, ding, 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 and then they come to the door upset. Yes, sir, I'm late, sir. Give me 1 second. Yeah, you were 3rd on the list. This is you guys, number 818. Right? And they're like, what the heck is going on? Right? Because I need to break that preoccupation. Right? The same way when you hear not interested, if you only have 1 or 2 ways to handle that, or somebody says, I want to think about it, and you don't have all these different ways to close, like the secondary question close, the instant reverse close, understand the difference between all the takeaways, the tie downs, being able to build emotion with somebody, creating a pain. If there is no pain, there will be no change. Going into a story, the better my story is, the more I can explain to them how this is going to benefit their situation. Then I say, hey, if we do pick your home, this is how you would be involved. This is how you'd be rewarded. This is why it makes sense. But I think for a lot of door-to-door sales professionals, if you're brand new and you're trying to get better, utilize resources. How do I become a better door-to-door salesman? Go to YouTube, look at door-to-door sales.
You said you learned from Tom Hopkins, right?
Tom Hopkins is my mentor, and his mentor,
Zig Ziglar.
Yeah, J. Douglas Edwards, and Tom Hopkins. They teach a lot of how-to sales. How-to sales is the nitty-gritty. It's the one-liners. It's the psychology behind why somebody's going to say yes, the psychology behind why somebody's going to say no. And for a brand new door-to-door salesman, if I was to give them any sort of advice, I would explain to them to give maximum effort. And you cannot manage a salesman's production, but what you can manage is salesman's activity, okay? What I mean by that is if somebody says, hey, I'm going to be out there at 10 a.m. and I'm going to stay out there till 8 p.m., I want a selfie of you at 9:57 in the turf, and I want a selfie of you at, 8:06 in turf, proving that you were out there the entire day. I have a cooler in my car. I fill it up with ice. I have a mobile 7-Eleven inside of my vehicle because if it's 3 o'clock and I get tired and I need to go out and get a sandwich or I need to get a drink, me leaving turf to go get that is going to cost. It's going to cost me $1,000 at least.
Well, even worse, I've seen it where like you walk away and you're like, fuck. It just takes more effort to come back and have the same attitude than just to pick up something quick from the car.
Yeah,
hit the turf.
And that's what I do. I mean, there's times, trust me, I pace myself. Like I'm out in the field a lot of the times, 10 hours, 11 hours a day without leaving the turf. And, there's times where I react to my body in the way that I feel. If I feel tired, I'll go to the car. I have a ice towel that I put on the back of my neck. I drink a Gatorade. I sit there for 3 minutes. I relax my thoughts. Right. And that's one major thing that I do. I maintain my energy. Like I said before, if you take energy outside of where you have influence, you know what you're going to do? You're going to wear yourself out. Yeah. Right. Some do, some don't. So what? It doesn't make a difference to me if they do it. Like I don't pay the bill. But if I go through the process with them, they'll do it. And the only way they'd want to actually pay more for their power is if they wanted to justify a way to pay more for their electricity. Right.
So besides knowing the one-liners and having the resources, let's say they have something as great as fucking rock stars, right? Like Knockstars. Sorry, yeah. Knockstars. You were talking about fucking how you picked the name, which is pretty dope. Knockstars, and then you have something like Limitless, right? Let's just say you have all the resources, right? And the guy never applies it. He knows everything, but he never puts it into action.
Well, that's called programming. You hear all the same information. And the most powerful computer is what's up here. It's your mind, right? I can tell you the information all day, but this is a fire nugget. You cannot reflex an idea, but what you can do is you can reflex words, okay? You can't reflex an idea, but you can reflex words. It's like when you come to learn anything, right? Not taking notes is like eating spaghetti with a spoon. You're going to get a lot on you, but you're not going to get a lot in you, right? And you need to absorb the information. And the way that you absorb the information is by being aware and alert, then repeating yourself. You need to hear, read, write, and say something 6 or 7 times to gain 65 to 75% of the retention. And then once you actually repeat it so much, then you utilize it in the field. And once you utilize it, then you internalize it. It becomes a natural part of you, and then you reinforce it. So I don't think when I talk, I speak from the heart, and it's because I've spent decades actually perfecting my craft and trying to become the best version of myself. You guys are everybody in the sales game, you're in the people business. You do need to work harder on yourself than you do at your job, and that's how you're going to become the best version of yourself. And as you become the best version of yourself, you're going to have a lot more confidence. You're going to have a lot more the ability to talk with people at the right frequency. If your favorite radio station is 94.5 and you go to 94.3, what are you going to hear?
Static.
You're going to hear a ton of static. You're not going to hear anything, right? Yeah. But if I turn it just a half notch, then I'm going to hear the music. And that's the problem is when we go to communicate, they may hear static in one ear and out the other one. But when I can talk to them at the frequency, when I can hand them something, when I can show them and they start reading, hearing, I get them to talk and even writing.
Let's simplify it. Because I know, dude, your vocabulary is fucking off the charts, bro. So whenever I teach my guys, I try to stupidify it. Like when I say at the right frequency, what I'm talking about is it needs to become second nature. Yeah. Where like you hit the field so much that you're not thinking about what to say next. You're actually paying attention to your client.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
If I was to teach somebody brand new the most simple presentation without being too advanced, it's just, oh, hey, sir, how are you? My name is Taylor McCarthy. The reason I'm coming by is a little bit different. I'll pretty much cut to the chase. You know how you have PG&E here for the electricity?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if you knew what happened. It is serious. We're not trying to come down anybody. However, it is important. It's easier if I show you. So the big problem that we have here in California is, and then I'm going to talk about a problem, whether it be the grid, the wildfires, the metal poles being switched out for wooden poles being switched out for metal. But the way I transition into solar, when I first talk like this is solar, I say, now, I don't know if you notice all these people putting up like the little windmills in their backyard or like the solar panels on their roof. These people did not win the lottery. They did not take money out of their checking account, nor did they pivot from their stock portfolios. There's a new program that's allowing the families to actually redirect, divert, or shift away from the utility company. It's called the redirection program. So like I mentioned, these people did not win the lottery. Now, people have 5 major questions. You see, control is the most important part or technique of the sales presentation. And control, somebody has to take the command position.
So what's the easiest way? So we talk about control. So I always explain this to the guys. Control, let me give you guys an example. I was like, dude, if you're getting interrogated, who's in control?
It's a good way to look at it.
The guy who's asking the questions?
Yep.
Or the guy answering them? So the easiest way this is why I've been saying, like, a stupid fight where, like, you can gain control with simple questions.
Of course.
And what it does is it helps you engage, and you're no longer just spitting out fucking a bunch of fucking verbal diarrhea or solar information that doesn't make any sense. It's confusing the client. It gets boring, right? But it's simple as that. Ask a question, let him answer, and continue.
And the number one thing after shadowing hundreds of sales reps and them watching me, people don't engage. They're not putting you have to put something in their hand. Because when I'm explaining something, they're going to look at a picture and process that information 10,000 times faster than my word.
So, this is funny because it's funny when people have a good product, they always say, like, we have that too. Dude, I shit you not. Our shit, the way that I train the door-to-door and why our reps come in 3 weeks, they're making $10,000 like that, is because we teach the same shit. People learn differently.
One
Visually,
of the things you always say is you got to paint the picture for the client.
Yeah.
Right? So with the
paint the picture. So he just made a really good point. Two of my favorite books that I have in my library, one is by Dr. Seuss. It's called Green Eggs and Ham, right? Yeah. He says no a million times. And the other one is Curious George, because you have to create curiosity. If you're getting not interested, you didn't create curiosity. Well, how do you create curiosity? You have to paint the picture. If you paint the picture, what are you doing? You're creating imagery. If you can paint that picture, you create the curiosity. Well, if you're getting not interested, you didn't create curiosity. You didn't make this a big deal. Yeah. Like, this is a huge deal. Yeah. And, like, if I'm just like, hey, how are you? This is what's going on with the solar, blah, 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 then they're just in one ear, out the other one. It's like an infomercial or a telemarketer calling you.
Yeah. Dude, that shit's fire because we do similar stuff. We use a different pitch. I know you got the snippets. Presentation. Yeah. You fucking keep that. I owe a fucking $5 on that.
10 push-ups.
But we have the presentation and we do the same thing. Engagement. You're asking, then people are following what you're doing. They're paying attention. That's the most important thing. Most of the people, if you don't find a way to have people concentrate and pay attention to what the fuck you're saying, you can never build interest or curiosity.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
You have to build curiosity, and you have to be interesting. For people to be interested in you, you have to be interesting, and you have to actually involve them, because buying is an involvement sport. It's not a 100%. Spectator sport. I want to involve them as much as possible, and like I said, it's not the words that I say, it's the music that they hear. It's not what I say, it's not how I say it, it's how I make them feel. I create an experience that when I leave that family's home, that I ask them the question, are you guys pretty excited about this? And if they're not excited, then you didn't do your job correctly. I'm not setting these jobs up to cancel.
Do you ever I heard you say that, and that's fire. Because sometimes I'm like, hey, listen. I look at their body language and I'm like, listen. I don't want to do this either if you're not fully there. I'm just not going to do it. It costs me money. Yeah. But is there anything that I missed? Or I go back and say, look, I got 3 questions just in case, right? Hey, did you like what I presented to you today? Can you afford it? And then the third thing is, did I earn your business today?
Yeah.
Simple as that. And they're like, yes, all right. Look, is this information correct? By the way, if you guys have any questions, here's my personal number. Call me.
And two of the $1 million question, and when you're in the process, and I've had people that try to argue with me in the middle of it, and I'm like, sir, this isn't a sales process. You're actually starting to make me feel a little uncomfortable. Right? And I'll take it away from them.
Yeah.
And, sir, level with me. How much of what I've told to you do you actually believe? And the $1 million question that I ask at the very end, and this is fire right here, right? This is so fire. At the very end of the presentation, I would say, okay, Roberto, I have one last question. I'd take out my cell phone and I say, I want you to answer this as genuine as possible. Just answer it authentically. Hypothetically, if I snap my fingers and the solar panels were installed on the roof, and you had the $164 fixed payment, you knew that you would never ever increase because you owned the system, and then you heard your doorbell ring and it was PG&E, and you were cooking breakfast and you went to go open the door, and PG&E tried to convince you to rip those panels off and go back to the $200 rate that you have now, and they could raise that rate at any time, what would you say?
Fuck no.
Okay, and then we want to know what I do next? What? I take that video and I text it to them.
Oh.
If they don't sign there?
No, after it's all closed, I ask that question, and then I text it over to them.
That's going in.
And then when they try to cancel, if they ever did, I'm doing that question mark emoji. Like, sir, is everything okay? Because you told me that you would never do this, bro.
So it solidifies the deal and it builds accountability for the client.
Well, because they told me why they should do it. I can tell them all day why it makes sense. I work for the company. I'm going to tell you it's good no matter what. But once I get them to tell me the reasons why it makes sense, I'm like a police officer. Anything they said will be held against them. You know what I mean? And I go through a process, a closing presentation that I developed called the Can We Pay questions, where these questions will ultimately determine whether or not we pick your home. And I have these loaded questions I already know their answer to, and they answer the question the way I know they're going to answer, and then I write down their answer. So that at the very end of the presentation, I'm like, okay, so you told me this, you told me that, you told me this. You're pretty much a shoo-in for the program. You lived here for 14 years. So the next step is I'm just going to go into your design. But before we actually choose you as a model home, do you have any issue with me using you as a reference?
No.
Okay, the non-disclosure, if a neighbor asks, just say you're part of a special marketing program. And then lastly is that sign. I know I didn't really go into depths, but the helicopter is going to airlift it onto the roof with the Christmas tree lights on. I'm just kidding, man. It's just a small little one. We want to keep it right here for the visibility. We'll have the credibility because you've lived here for 10 years. Tell others what you like and benefit, but also being able to show them that you have one of our newer systems with the new technology. So now I'm going to go into the design, and then I show them exactly apples to apples both situation. And then you create the decision.
So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because, dude, like, listen, this is the shit that I'm talking about. This guy is so fucking nature. You're so fucking nature, bro. You're not even thinking about the fuck you're just looking at me. So
and this is technical too. It's in detail.
It's in detail, right? Like, and you know exactly, dude. You've said the same shit to me 5 times, bro, already.
Yeah. Utilize, and internalize, reinforce. That's what it is.
And, you know, we go back to practice. And this is why I urge everybody, dude, listen, if you can't work yourself up to get in front of the mirror, and we'll end it like in 2 minutes. If you can't work yourself up, right, to practice in front of the mirror and just role play yourself and do all those things, get out in the field.
Better off when you're in the field, take your voice recorder. Everybody has one on their phone, and voice record your presentation and listen to it. Yeah. When I watch my, question, if I was a football player and I was a quarterback and I kept throwing interceptions, what am I going to do to improve?
Fuck, go through some fucking balls, bro.
But what do I do? What do I do? I'm going to watch the
replay.
I'm going to watch the film on myself, right? Damn, I keep throwing the pick. The safety keeps picking me off. What do I got to do? I got to read the safety a little better. Well, it's the same way in door-to-door sales. You've got to listen to what you're saying, right? You're going to listen to yourself and you're going to realize, dude, I say and ah all the time. And I don't transcend certainty, or, you know, the buyer might have been interested and I didn't hit the hot button.
Oh, and that's the thing. That's why this is the point I'm trying to get. You have to automate your fucking pitch so that you can listen to people, right? You listen to what they tell you. And sometimes you don't even have to go through your whole presentation. Yep. Right? All you do is they're like, hey, by the way, and how much does it cost? That's a great question. It only takes 30 to 40 minutes. A couple things that I got to look at. Look, I have an availability of 5 or 7 p.m. Which one of those times work for you? Bam. All of a sudden, it becomes second nature. You're paying attention to those curiosity questions, those buying signs, and right away you attack it. But a lot of the people talk themselves out of the sale because they don't have enough practice. And they're trying to go through the presentation, right, through the whole thing, and they think that after the presentation, everything automatically is going to piece together. But what I'm trying to get to is y'all need to fucking practice and make it second nature, because you start leveling up. There's guys that are closing 50%. They're making good money in the fucking industry. But what if when the industry is not the same? We're not getting paid $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 a deal. What are you going to do? Are you going to survive off that 50% close rate you have? Or are you going to finally step it up? And I guarantee you most of you will step it up because you have to.
And that's one of the questions I had. All right, they set the appointment, they close the deal, they made some money, and then they get comfortable. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that?
So the reason that people are going to get comfortable is because their vision isn't big enough. Without vision, you will always perish, right? Yeah. You're not going to be able to see the longer the salary that's holding you back from your dreams, or how much money, the 100K a year, the 200K a year. But you have to understand, in our profession, your decisions decide your wealth, right? And if there was no such thing as sales, I have no idea what I would do, right? And ultimately, once it becomes a game, then you never work a day in your life. Like a lot of door-to-door sales trainers out there, they do not train door-to-door sales. They train motivation. Door-to-door sales training is you go to the field and you watch somebody go through, you present. And like I said,
they watch you go through it.
Time either expose you or promote you. And, a lot of these guys are not player coaches. They're, they did something 10 years ago and then they're talking about it rather than being about it. Procrastination, when you procrastinate, because you talked about how you become comfortable, right? When they procrastinate about getting better. When you procrastinate, you ruin your future, you avoid the present, and you live in the past. That's what procrastination is. You're ruining your future, right? So when I think about when I'm procrastinating, I think of that line. I'm not going to ruin my future. I'm not going to avoid the present. I'm not going to live in the past, and I'm going to focus on doing the most productive task at every given moment.
I always tell the guys this. When you learn that life and what happens to you is a choice, doesn't happen to you, it's a choice. Mm-hmm. When you learn that you have a choice in life, you become fucking powerful, and you cannot be defeated. There's a choice. You want to go get that house? You got a choice. You got to fucking find a way. Right? And you just touched on that a little bit. I choose to do this instead. Right? And I think that a lot of people in similar situations where they get really, really comfortable, they're like, well, I didn't really think I was going to get this far, first and foremost. Right? And then they're like, all right, well, I'll slow down, and next month, I'll come back to it. And then you ask them, hey, what's your vision? What's your goal? I don't know. So how do you hit a target that you don't have? How do you hit a target you don't have?
Because the worst part is that they do have the potential and they have had the success.
Well, a salesman is first off a man that can sell himself to himself. The number one people, the top salespeople, they shine with something that we call conviction. Yeah. They have a catching belief in themselves, right? It's me versus me, right? The conversations that I have with myself are the most important, right? Some do, some don't, so what? But the way that I envision myself and the way that you build belief in what you do is you double down on yourself. You put all the chips down on yourself. You put your last name on your back and you say, hey, I'm going to go prove it to you, right? And if you struggle, and if you're struggling at the beginning of your door-to-door sales career, what I would give you for advice right now is, to do everything that it possibly can, constantly memorize, practice, drill, rehearse, voice record your presentation, go to the top people in the industry, right? You go to the top person in your office, right? Yeah. There's levels of a salesman, right? And the top level is called a stone cold trapper, right? These are the number one guys in the office. Under the stone cold trapper is the master closer. This is the king or the queen of selling. Yeah. Under the master closer is the closer. Under the closer is the dealsman. Under the dealsman is the salesman. Under the salesman, which I always thought was the absolute lowest level of a salesman, was an order taker, somebody that just takes orders. But there's one form lower than an order taker. And back in the day, they used to call them tour guides. A tour guide. There's out there. A tour guide. That's what they used to call the scrub of the office. Dude, you're just a tour guide. You're out there giving away information, but you ain't getting any deals.
I know what you're talking about.
Right? A tour guide, right? Somebody that goes people on tours around the neighborhood, right?
A tour guide.
So are you a tour guide or a stone cold trapper? And there's levels to the game. And, with the deep down desire that you have and that ardent desire, it's going to create discipline, and that discipline will allow you to demonstrate. And through demonstration, you document. So you have a story. And when you have a story, you duplicate. And when you duplicate, then you disappear and you move to the next level.
Boom. We're going to end it at that. That was fire. Because it comes back to there's two aspects of sales. Knowledge, right?
And applied knowledge.
And applied knowledge. And then the mental side, and you gotta be good on both.
Of course.
Yeah, that was fire.
The technique, the attitude, and the behavior.
Yeah.
Because I could have great technique and I could have a great mindset, but guess what? If I don't go out and go produce and execute, the hardest door to get out of is the car door.
Yeah, 100%. We always say that.
That's why I need to tell myself what's going to happen before the deal happens. I believe in the deal. Like every day that I go out and produce, I know what's going to happen before I go out there. But I've got to get out there and put myself in front of as many people as possible, right? And then make them like you, trust you, and make it make sense. Like I said, trust is the only objection that you need to overcome. It's like having a cell phone with no service. All you can really do is play games, and I'm not here to play games, so level with me. How much of what I've actually told you do you actually believe, right? So I've got a bag. I've got a bag of these one-liners. I've got so much belief and conviction in myself as a door-to-door sales professional. I've got the competitive advantage. You want to know what that is? I've got the better deal every single time. There's no way I can hurt their situation. I definitely feel as if people hesitate to pay full price on things they don't need to. I definitely feel as if people want to be more economical on a bill they're never going to cancel, because if I go through this process with you, you'll do it, right? And the hardest part of my job is timing, right? I can see that you're busy right now, sir, but all I need to do is really lay out everything apples for apples. This isn't a doorstep decision, but what I am going to do is I'm going to compare both situations. I'm going to show you two specific things, exactly where the panels would be laid out and exactly where your bill would have been last month. If they're small, like corner of a table, I can kind of just put my stuff down. I'll leave you with all the information in the report. Do you need me to take off my shoes? And my philosophy is to always take the presentation as far as I possibly can. I don't believe in one touch, two touch, three touch. I want to take them as far through the process as I possibly can and create the decision.
And let's just say this is the last thing I want to ask you, dude. So there's so many aspects of understanding, your own mind, right? Believing in yourself, creating conviction, right? Staying motivated, learning everything, understanding the other person on the other side, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many parts. So what would be 4 things that somebody new in the industry should focus on in order? 4 things.
Well, I would
that help their mental and that they help their knowledge, their proficiency, in the product.
I would say the top 5 fundamentals that I focus on is clarity. A confused mind always says no. Repetition. You need to repeat something 6 or 7 times for them to retain that information. They learn by hearing, reading, writing, and saying. Imagery. Energy. The guy with the most energy makes the most money. Belief. 51% of the entire sales process is the enthusiasm, the spirit that I have within me for the deal. Okay. And then the 5th one is service. You need to genuinely wake up and try to help somebody, right? That this isn't a hocus pocus deal. This is something where I'm creating franchises, and my job actually starts when this system PTOs. A lot of people think, oh, I close the sale, I'm going to start fist pumping, right? No, it's not even when it gets installed, because, how many installs do you have in your solar career, personal installs?
Fuck, I can't count, bro. I always close deals for my own guys, dude.
So, let's say your company.
Fuck. Like we were just talking about that shit, huh? So millions of fucking dollars. So
say a sales professional. Say a sales professional has 100 installs under his belt. Some people open up Burger King franchises, Wendy's franchises. He's got 100 franchises set up for the next 25 years. And he can grow referral orchards off those families that he serves as long as he gives them way more than they expect. Yeah. And that's one of the key fundamentals that I would tell everybody. Always give people way more than they expect. Clarity, repetition, energy, belief, and service. And the way that you envision yourself. Do you envision yourself like a prize fighter, or do you envision yourself like a tour guide giving away information all day? I never have the thoughts come into my head, oh, what if I get a deal today, or I hope I get one, or this is bad turf. I just focus on input and good things happen. Yeah. Some do, some don't, so what? That's on them. I don't pay the bill.
God, you guys heard it here. Fucking Taylor McCarthy dropping some fucking bombs, and I can tell you guys, this is probably, and I can say we've had Sam Tiger on here. No, nothing Sam Tiger's probably should have said. We should edit that shit because he's still our buddy. But bro, this guy has some fucking fire.
This is the most technical.
You haven't seen it yet.
And this is performance. This is performance sales. Because have you noticed everybody talks about the same shit online, and it pisses me the fuck off too. But this is why I kept trying to tell, this is why I say, hey, look, what does practice do? Because a lot of people, practice, they associate practice with like sweating, doing all this fucking crazy work, getting tired, but they don't associate practice with improvement, going to the next level, right? Like becoming a true professional in sales, right?
And I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people call themselves professionals, right? It's like Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice, right? But practice does not make perfect. Only perfect practice makes practice perfect. And when you memorize, practice, drill, rehearse, and you work your way through that loop over and over, that's how you become a professional, and that's how you become a master, and that's how you become a stone cold trapper.
And that's how you become a cold stone trapper, bro.